Challenger.
Indeed, within a matter of hours, the channel Is Bible from Heaven? Is the Earth a Globe? Released 29 concrete proofs for flat Earth. Welcome viewer, get ready for jolly good fun. In all honesty, I did see some of the videos beforehand, and some do raise some new points that would need addressing, whereas some would be much shorter. At times, I guess I would refer to my earlier videos where I have elaborated on the topic in hand in much more details. Links would be in description and pop-up cards when possible. So let's jump into it.
Flat Earth Proof 1. The level. It is the natural physics of water to find and maintain a level surface. Any body of water conforming to the curvature would therefore exhibit a distinctive bulge in its center.
Well, the body of water within the lake would seek the lowest potential. So why are you expecting a lump inside the lake? Now when I say lowest potential, I'm talking about points on surface of the water having a perpendicular vector to the center of gravity. I have a detailed video titled Debunking Flat Earth Claim Water Finds This Level, explaining it in more details.
Further confirming the non-curvature of the water's surface is the reflection of the moon in water. If the Earth were a ball and the moon in front of you, her reflection would be off the side of the curved water facing away from you, and therefore you wouldn't even see the lunar reflection. You would only see the moon's reflection if she were directly above or behind you, and it would appear as a spotlight on the water.
In all honesty, I don't understand this part at all, and I have played it back many times. I'm looking at the text on video and it says, if the ocean was curved, the moon's reflection on the water would be on the back side of the ball Earth. The moon reflection would therefore be small and not elongated as we see it. Huh? What? Well, even without understanding it, I can dismiss it as it starts with, if the ocean was curved. Well, water in essence tries to be as close to the center of the Earth as possible. That is a very non-scientific way to describe it without using the G word. So it's not curved. The next argument is simply how it is possible for the water to remain so even as the Earth is moving so fast. I don't know how to answer that without using the G word. Well, let me see. Earth moves, water moves with it. Water tries to stay as close to the center. Done. But in all seriousness, it is the Earth's gravity pull. On top, we have various continents which, being a large mass, also contributes to the gravity force, and water tends to puddle more near the dense spot of gravity. But once puddled, it would find its lowest potential.
Did you know that it is a fundamental fact that surveyors, engineers, and architects never factor in the supposed curvature of the Earth into their projects? Canals, railroads, tunnels, and bridges are all cut and laid horizontally, never allowing for any curvature, often over hundreds of kilometers.
I wanted to address this as I haven't done it before. Later on this video, he will reference to our own Manchester Ship and Canal Company and such to reinforce that Earth's curvature are never taken into account. Now, full disclosure, I'm a computer engineer with electronics background. I'm not a civil engineer or railway or canal engineer, but we do share some similar principles. If I've got something wrong, I'm hoping another engineer can jump in and set it straight. Often you would hear flat earthers using the formula 8 inches per mile squared, and that is supposed to be how much the land would dip or rise due to Earth's curvature. Now I have talked about this formula in great details, and even a full video creating a graph from this equation and showing how the error margin gets larger over distance. That equation is actually used in civil engineering and land surveying. as often they wouldn't be measuring hundreds of kilometers, the error margin was quite acceptable. So flat earthers, please make up your mind. If you're going to bring in a civil engineering formula to prove something shouldn't be seen due to the curve, on the next breath you can't say surveyors never take curvature into consideration, in which case this equation would not exist. Nevertheless, are those claims true? Well, if I had disagreed, I would have searched for it or maybe even sent emails to those departments. But that's the catch. I agree with a couple of those claims. Before we get into the examples, can we first try to figure out when do we need to take the curvature into account? Let's look around us. Most of the architectures we see around us, I mean things like houses and buildings, well, none of them are applicable, right? How about those large electric posts? Well, those have wires hanging in between, and thus even the next tower a mile away was 8-inch lower, it wouldn't matter. How about roads? Just to put it in perspective, using that 8 inches formula would give us a declination of only 0.00723 degree or 0 degree 0 minutes 26 seconds. I have a greater declination in the road in front of my house where I park my car. I hope that makes the point that it doesn't matter for roads. Railways, as it was mentioned in the video. Well, I'm sure we have all seen railway tracks, and we know that it's not one long track. In UK, each track is 20 meters long, where other parts of the world uses 12 meter or 24 meter. And these tracks are bolted using perforated steel plates. So when these tracks are being laid down, the only thing they worry about is the levelness of that area. But of course, they would have had the whole route plotted. And if any of you played Transport Tycoon, you know it is cheaper and faster at times to go around hills or valleys. Calculation of the curve is again not needed. How about canals? Well, as we talked about water earlier, another way to put it would be to say that the surface of the water is equipotential. It has roughly the same distance to the Earth's center of gravity. Take Suez Canal, for example. It is the waterway connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. The level of water on both seas are practically the same, including when the water flows through the Suez Canal. The engineers only need to ensure that the canal bed is 26 feet deep relative to the equipotential surface of the seawater. Because the surface of the water curves, then the foundation of the canal would also curve along the curvature of the earth. Finally, to actually prove that engineers do take it into consideration, and sometimes to hilarious effect. I have a series where I covered some reading materials that I have liked, and one of those were for a book by Matt Parker called Humble Pie. It's a book on mathematics and mistakes we make, and is a great read. A card should be popping up. So this is a true event described in that book. A bridge was being built between Laufenburg and Laufenburg. No, I didn't make a mistake except butchering the pronunciation. One Laufenburg is in Germany and the other in Switzerland. Each side was constructed separately out over the river until they could be joined up in the middle. Obviously, this required both parties to agree how high the bridge is going to be, which they defined relative to sea level. Here came the problem I had alluded to earlier. Sea level is not the same across the world. We in UK use the average height of the water in the English Channel as measured from the town of Newlyn in Cornwall once an hour. Germany uses the height of water in the North Sea, and Switzerland, being a landlocked, derives its sea level from the Mediterranean. The problem arose because the definition of sea level between Germany and Switzerland meant there was a difference of 27 centimeters, and without compensating for this difference, the bridge would not match in the middle. So far so good, but oops, the engineers subtracted that value from the wrong side, and when that 225-meter bridge met in the middle, The German side was 54 centimeters higher than the Swiss side. Apart from obviously the funny side of it, did you notice my point? Those were measured based on sea level. Damn, that was a long explanation. TLDR, normal day-to-day, no, we don't take the curvature into consideration. But when it is applicable, we do, like bridges. It is not the practice in laying out public works to make allowances for the curvature of the Earth. No shit, Sherlock.
Flat Earth Proof 2. Pilot Principles. The Earth, said to spin eastward at a speed of 1600 kilometers per hour at the equator. So then, how is a plane able to fly eastward at half that speed and reach its destination in more or less the same time as the return flight?
Seriously? Well, our explanation is the atmosphere is moving with the Earth. It's the same reason when I'm flying my drone outside my house, it doesn't go crashing into the buildings, as it is moving with the Earth's rotation. I'll admit that is not debunking. So there are two possibilities. Either the Earth is rotating as we claim, with the atmosphere, or option 2, it is not rotating. We can all do a test at home using a pendulum, a tripod, and a camera. This would be based on Foucault pendulum, named after French physicist Léon Foucault, and conceived as an experiment to demonstrate the Earth's rotation. The pendulum was introduced in 1851 and was the first experiment to give simple, direct evidence of the Earth's rotation. Or we can let one of your peers to use a laser gyroscope to find it out himself.
But what we found is when we turned on that gyroscope, we found that we were picking up a drift, a 15 degree per hour drift.
So yeah, Earth rotates with the atmosphere and thus there is no catching up for the aircraft while flying towards rotation.
But the one fact against the ball Earth model is that for the average commercial flight flying at 800 kilometers per hour, pilots would have to course correct at a descending rate of 850 meters per minute in order to follow the curvature of the Earth.
I have a detailed explanation on this. It is a fascinating subject, at least for me, on how individual gauges work in an aircraft. A very short TLDR would be, atmospheric pressure is what is used for the altitude meter. And on a small two-seater like Cessna, without any computer aid, we would have to adjust our trim to fly level. In aviation, flying level means our altitude is the same. We are not ascending or descending. Finally, with some math, I showed what this angle would need to be, and it is simply not the way you guys described it. My full video is called Debunking Flat Earth Claim Regarding Aircraft, Pitching Nose and Flying Off to Space. Link in the description.
Flat Earth Proof 3. Land Ho.
This next section is all about things we can see that we shouldn't be able to, due to the curvature. Before getting into it, can we divide them into two categories? One, that we can see all the time, and two, we only see at particular time and maybe time of the year. For category 1, well, almost always, they use that old formula of 8 inches per mile squared. I mentioned my video earlier showing why that formula is wrong. Now we can use a sphere formula instead of the parabolic formula they use, and often we would find that the place they are mentioning should indeed be visible, as atmospheric refraction can vary. But then again, this is the category where the place is visible all the time, so the refraction has to be, say, average. With that prelude out of the way, let's look at the places they mention. The Dunkerque Light in southern France at an altitude of 194 feet is visible from 28 miles away from a boat 10 feet above sea level. Spherical trigonometry dictates that if the Earth was a globe with the given curvature of 8 inches per mile squared, this light should be hidden 190 feet below the horizon. Prick me tender. That checks out, even with refraction. Am I about to turn into a flat earther? Wait, I'm a skeptic and a cynic. This proof is gold and would shut me up completely. If I was on your side, this photo would be in the thumbnail and the full video. How come you're not showing us it being visible from 28 miles? Not to worry, maybe you were lazy, but I'm not. I'll search for it. And I did. Funnily enough, all the links to flat earthers gave me a drawing and never an actual photo. What is going on? As it happens, this claim was made by Eric Dubé, who lifted it wholeheartedly from Zetetic Astronomy. If we look at the original text from that book, we don't find any mention of observer height of 10 feet. Thankfully, Google allows us to view that page online. Link in description so you can check the actual text. So no verifiable proof. But given that height and distance, it is not possible to see that lighthouse. Unless we are thinking of an old ship where someone would spot the lighthouse from crow's nest. And if that nest is around 80 feet above sea level, well then it would be possible to see it from said distance. Followed by several unverifiable proof, the one I would like to touch on is the Isle of Wight lighthouse in England is 180 feet high and can be seen up to 42 miles away, a distance at which modern astronomers say the light should fall 996 feet below line of sight. Funnily enough, that lighthouse was lowered to 135 feet in 1875. Over 145 years have passed, and yet a single flat earther had ever bothered to verify this claim. It just shows that they would latch on to anything that supports their view without any verification. So let's get to the actual photographs, shall we?
The Philadelphia skyline is clearly visible from Apple Pie Hill in New Jersey, 40 miles away, factoring in the 205-foot elevation of Apple Pie Hill.
I'm not exactly sure what to say. Even if we take the given values as fact, one of the tower visible is Comcast Center Tower, which has a ground elevation of 42 feet and a height of 973 feet. Plug in those values and yes, it should be visible. I came across a nice blog, link would be in description, where the writer used the image you're seeing on screen, done by a professional surveyor using wild Harburg theodolite. According to that survey, the distance isn't 40 miles, but around 32.44 miles. Furthermore, this observation was taken from a tower in Apple Pie Hill, which has a height of 46 feet, bringing the elevation to 250 feet. This article goes into a lot more details, explaining how it fits with globe rather than flat Earth.
The New York City skyline is clearly visible from Bear Mountain 60 miles away, despite factoring in the 1,283-foot summit of Bear Mountain.
Well, at the summit of Bear Mountain, a 40 feet or 12-meter Parkinson's Memorial Tower provides a view of 4 states and the skyline of Manhattan, 40 miles or 64 kilometers to the south, and the summit itself has an elevation of 1,289 feet. Here is one discrepancy. They mention the distance as 60 miles, but it actually is 40 miles. But who'd care of this 20 miles, right? The tallest building in New York is One World Trade Center, which rises 1,776 feet, and New York itself is 33 feet above sea level. Even using their values, and no refraction, 1,627 feet of the tower would be visible if weren't obscured by other buildings in the way.
The Chicago skyline can often be seen from sea level 60 miles away from across Lake Michigan.
This is a truly amazing picture taken by Joshua Nowicki. This is atmospheric refraction. If you're in doubt, ask why the full Chicago skyline is not visible all the time, barring clouds, rain or fog. You can see some more photos from Joshua, even one mirage where the buildings appeared flipped.
From Anchorage, Alaska, on a clear day, at an elevation of 102 feet, Mount Foraker can be seen by the naked eye. at 120 miles away, when in reality the entire mountain, from base to summit, can be seen standing upright.
Nope. Using the correct calculation, with an observer at 102 feet and using the distance of 120 miles given, the obscured height would be 7,728 feet, while the height of Mount Foraker is 17,400 feet. So over 9,672 feet of the mountain should be visible. Looking at the profile of Mount Foraker, you can clearly see that the visible part of the mountain in Dubai's image is only the upper part.
Another example from Anchorage, Alaska is Mount Mckinley. At 130 miles away on the ball Earth, the 20,320-foot summit should be leaning away from the observer. But just like Mount Foraker, Mount Mckinley is always seen standing straight up and visible from base to summit.
Here, the video didn't give us the observer height, but Eric Dubé did, and it is 120 feet. Well, hidden is 9,068 feet, so about 56% of the mountain should be visible. Again, we can see that the whole mountain from base to summit is not visible. Another lie. What a surprise. The remaining are all refraction based, including Corsica. Well, examples like this and Mount Canigou, which can be seen only during sunset and sometimes only during certain months of the year. I have a detailed explanation on this phenomena, where we go through actual sun travel and how the rays are hitting the earth and why that view is possible only during certain months and only when the sun is at horizon. Please check out my "We See Too Far and We Shouldn't See Mount Canigou" video for detailed explanations. A very short summary is, when the sun is near horizon, the ray has to travel through more of the atmosphere and further refracted, which often brings objects from behind the curve into view. Ask yourself a simple question. Why is Corsica visible from Monaco only during sunrise? Shouldn't you be able to see it all the time? Damn, this is getting to a much longer video than I expected, and we only covered 3 points so far. Well, thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this content so far, please drop a like and comment, and maybe even subscribe to know of my later uploads debunking the rest. That would be greatly appreciated. Have a safe day. Signing off.
Try.